Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the second and final high school information session on our Return to Learn plan here at Eastern Carver County Schools. My name is Kaylee Haga. I'm the Director of Communications and Community Relations. I want to thank you all for spending some time with us tonight. Hopefully we get a chance to answer some of your questions. So logistical pieces, we've got all of our high school principals as well as some of our leadership from across the district here tonight. We're going to go through our plan and then have time for questions and answers. So feel free to put questions in the chat box. If you are on Facebook, leave some questions in the comments. We're going to get through as many questions as we can in the time that we have. With that, we'll get started, and I'm going to turn it over to Erin Rathke, our new Assistant Superintendent. Erin?
Thank you, Kaylee. I just want to welcome everyone here with us tonight, and on behalf of Superintendent Sales Adams and I, we are so thankful that you're spending some time with us this evening to get your questions answered and to listen to our Return to Learn plan from the high school perspective. Many people are asking us how we made decisions and how we're going to make decisions throughout the school year. We have a collaborative process that has been driven by data. We have been taking extensive stakeholder feedback since the spring from our families, teachers, and students. We have individually and as a team gone through state and local guidance line by line to make sure we understand and are ready to implement what's needed to safely support learning. We have worked with our local health organization. We have pulled together data to help us better understand not only Minnesota as a whole, but certainly our county, our specific county to health data. Right now, the governor has rolled out a framework that has provided 5 scenarios for us. Right now, the district falls in elementary in person and secondary in a hybrid model. As you know, if you've watched this presentation before, you can see that the data continues to change. The data will bounce from week to week, and we have to look at our overall numbers, our trends, and specifically where we land weekly, bi-weekly, and monthly. Currently, right now, we are at 15.9 in this framework that the governor has given us. The high school has decided to start in a distance learning model, and we are committed to opening into a hybrid model on or before October 8th. We wanted to build a schedule that would support the pivoting of in and out of each of the models. We have the potential of moving in and out of an in-person, hybrid, or distance learning model throughout the year, depending on how Eastern Carver County and our state cases and health data is changing week to week. So you can see here, we're moving to a block schedule. On Mondays, we will be supporting periods 1, 3, and 5. And on Tuesday, we will be supporting classes 2, 4, and 6 in an in-person for our A students. On Thursday and Friday, our B students will be in person. I'm sorry, wrong model. My fault, wrong one. That's what we're moving to. Distance learning. We are going to support these classes on each of these days. On Wednesday, the entire district will be in an all distance learning model. That's okay, you can move the slide. I messed that up. We're committed to work alongside our teachers, our building administrators, and our leaders to ensure that we can move to a hybrid model as soon as possible. Teaching and Learning is hosting sessions for our teachers to help them process and build out their 2-day-a-week online and 2-day-a-week in-person classes. The high school principals have been working with their teams and teachers and will be providing professional development and have already begun to collaborate with groups to help support and prepare teachers. We are really serious about thinking through our high school what we're offering at the high school level. Credit-bearing classes that meet graduation requirements need to be planful, and the teachers need time to develop these classes. As you can see here is a sample from Chaska High School. Chanhassen has a very similar bell schedule. This is going to be the daily schedule, and this schedule has been set up to support us to move into a hybrid model. One of the things we want you to be aware of is that we've led with the values of health, safety, and education. It is really important that we're able to report out the things that we have done to support health at each of the levels in our institution. We are ensuring that there has been increased airflow and improvement in our hand sanitizing stations. Everyone in the building will be wearing a mask according to the governor's executive order. There will be social distancing in classrooms and on buses. There will be scheduled cleaning times. There will also be school age care provided for our critical workers. When students are not in school, there will also be meals provided, as Dee Dee will share more in a future slide. We will also be providing an 100% online experience for students that they can choose to enroll in. You might be asking yourself as a high school parent, what would be the benefit of me enrolling in the online academy if the high school is already starting out in distance learning? What this would ensure is that you would have distance learning for an entire semester. We're asking families that if they do choose this model, that they do it very quickly because it impacts staffing and scheduling. It will be an ongoing option for you. So if you do decide that you want to enroll later, it is a possibility for you. Our entire district will start in any learning, whatever learning platform our district is in or levels are in, it will be on Google Classroom, because we know we have the potential of pivoting in and out of different models depending on our health data. This will allow us, Google Classroom will allow us to be flexible and continue to provide consistent learning. This will also help us if students would get sick or need to be home, not just from COVID, but if had the flu, if they needed to stay home for a couple days, we want to provide learning as much as possible. We do want to let you know that we will be balancing out synchronous and asynchronous learning. So you see that on the slide and you might be saying to yourself, what's that? That's teacher lingo. Synchronous and asynchronous means that there will be live conferencing with teachers within all of our models, but also particularly in our online learning academy. So there will be a live teacher, maybe starting a lesson, welcoming students, giving them directions, and then there will be some independent work time. And so you might see something like independent work time, tutorials, videos, live teachers, office hours. And so there will be a daily check-in virtually with our students. We do want to build relationships with students within the online academy. You may have a teacher across District 112. You are still enrolled at the high school that you are enrolling in. So if you are a Chanhassen student, you are still enrolled at Chanhassen, but you may possibly have a Chaska teacher, because it's 112 teachers providing education for our students in the online academy. You will have an administrator that you can talk to and reach out to through the online academy. And but you also will be able to reach out to your current principal to ensure that you can still have relationships and a high school experience at Chaska or Chanhassen or IAA. All teachers will build strong relationships, and we will really work hard to create a sense of belonging in our distance learning communities with students.
Hi, I'm Michelle Chuka. I'm the Specialized Services Supervisor for our high schools. And I just want to ensure you that whatever model that you decide, or if it's online or in school, whether we're hybrid or distance or in person, all students in special education will still receive a free appropriate public education within every single model. IEP teams will determine what those services look like. One thing that's going to be new this year is something called a contingency learning plan. For those of you who have students in special ed, what we did last year was called an individualized distance learning plan. This year, that contingency learning plan replaces that, and we'll have a plan for all models, whether that's in person, whether that's hybrid, or if it's distance. By creating that plan at the beginning of the year, we'll be able to pivot between models with the rest of the district as fluidly as possible. I also want to assure all parents of students in special education that you will be a very active part of that contingency learning plan, of creating that. And the IEP manager for your student will be reaching out to you sometime, hopefully during teacher workshop week or the first week of school, to get a meeting set up or a phone meeting to discuss what those models look like. Our teachers are dedicated. They're working really hard to make sure that our students can all hit the ground running. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Dee Dee Kering. I'm the Finance and Operations Director for the district. Just wanted to kind of touch base a little bit more on what Erin mentioned earlier. Face coverings will be provided for staff and are required per the governor's mandate. So we will also have some additional masks on hand for those students who forget or lose their masks. And I want to talk a little bit about indoor air quality. Routinely, we check on our indoor air quality. Every classroom in the district was evaluated by a third-party testing agency in February of 2020. The Institute of Environmental Assessment measured all classrooms while school was in session with children fully occupying the space, checking for relative humidity, temperature, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, or CO2, and checking those levels. The amount of carbon dioxide present in the air is a good indicator of ample fresh air. Some of our newer buildings actually use CO2 levels to control the amount of fresh air that enters the building through the building automation system. The testing that was, the testing that was completed in February indicates that the average amount of CO2 in our buildings is far less than 1,200 parts per million, meaning that the airflow in our schools is very good. Also, throughout the school, we will have hand sanitizer stations set up for students and staff to use. Related to our cleaning process, throughout the day, frequent touch points throughout all of our buildings will be sanitized. This includes door handles, handrails, light switches, elevators, call buttons, toilet and sink handles, and the like. Each evening, classrooms, service counters, tables, and chairs in common areas will be disinfected. When school will not be held for an entire day, for instance on Wednesdays, we will perform a deep clean on all common areas and classrooms. Cleaning kits will be available in classrooms. The kit will be made up of a carrying case, gloves, disinfectant, hand sanitizer, and paper towels. Products will be replenished as needed. Similar to what you've seen in stores and other public areas, we will have signs to help direct students and staff and try to assure that they are standing 6 feet apart. Plexiglass barriers will both be portable and permanent in nature. So at all of our reception areas in our schools, they will have more of a permanent plexiglass in front of them. Next, looking at the transportation plan, routes were set up for an all-in classroom scenario that would naturally reduce the passenger loads to meet the Department of Education guidance for the hybrid scenario without causing major changes, confusion, and disruptions. We adjusted standard procedures to control adequate passenger counts to meet the Department of Education, the guidance from the Department of Education, including limiting alternative address requests, not permitting extra riders, and limiting route changes to twice monthly. Routes will be designed to operate in the transit style model for each school. Drivers will run the same route every day, no matter what the hybrid group goes to on that day. But bus stops and times will remain the same, and it is understood that there may be days when there is not a rider at a bus stop. Ridership will be monitored regularly with plans to make adjustments where needed in the next scheduled route change. Just like other areas, our buses will also have some safety cleaning protocols. Drivers will wear masks. Drivers will also complete a health screening checklist each day before embarking on the bus route. As required by the Department of Education, the passenger seat behind the driver will remain empty to maintain approximately 6 feet between the driver and students. Window and roof vents will be open to allow additional fresh air when weather permits. And buses will be cleaned between each run, wiping down touch points and seats using approved chemicals. Additionally, buses will be cleaned at the end of every day using an electrostatic sprayer with approved chemicals. Students will also be encouraged to load from the back of the bus to the front of the bus. As you've probably heard, bell times will be changed. We needed to adjust the bell times both earlier and later to maximize current route fleet and supply. Additionally, changing the bell times allows us extra time to stagger loading, unloading, additional parent traffic issues, as well as cleaning procedures. Students of Eastern Carver County Schools will have multiple ways to access meals this fall, depending on their grade level and learning model choice. On days when your student is learning in their school building, they will visit our kitchens and cafeterias as they have in previous years, but with extra safety and physical distancing measures in place. If student is in a hybrid model, students will have the opportunity to take a 3-day meal kit home on the last day of in-person learning, before their 3 days of distance learning intended to be consumed on those distance learning days. So A students will take food home on Tuesdays, and B students will take home a meal kit on Friday. The meal kit will contain 3 breakfasts and 3 lunches, again, to be eaten on the days when they are distance learning. All students who participate in the 5-day distance learning will be provided meal kits. Students who choose to attend the Learning Academy can pick up a 5-day meal kit from your student school building. Additionally, there's an opportunity for parents and students to select the daily meal pickup. All students K through 12 can do this daily meal pickup from Chanhassen High School on any day that they are distance learning. Just like the other areas that I talked about, food safety and sanitation is a priority, not only previous years, but more so this year. In addition to the already stringent measures, school nutrition staff have instilled some of the additional measures I'll talk about. All staff will be wearing masks, gloves, and face shields when tasks allowed during prep and service of meals. Plexiglass or barriers are put in on all serving lines and point of sale to eliminate any exchange of droplets. Student purchases will be contactless at the point of sales. Floor markers will be put in place to assure 6-foot distancing. Food items will be single serve or served to them to avoid communal serving utensils. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tara Cliff, and I'm the Health Services Supervisor for the school district. So we're asking for families' cooperation to help us screen children for illness every day. Please take your child's temperature and ask them how they're feeling every day before sending them off to school. And if they're having symptoms of illness, please keep them home. Any student who is experiencing any symptoms while at school would be checked by the building nurse and isolated away from others until they're able to be picked up or they can drive themselves home. So anyone who has a positive case will be reported to the building nurse at that school. So parents, were asking for you to call in and report your child as a positive case to the building nurse, or conversely, sometimes we hear it from public health stating that they have a positive case in their system and they would notify us, being the school. So in collaboration with local public health, a case investigation would be conducted. And so based on what that information is, we would send notifications to those who have a close contact with the person who is positive. So not necessarily would you receive a school-wide notification of a positive test because of data privacy laws, unless it was to affect the entire school. But anyone with a positive test would need to stay home and isolate for 10 days from the onset of symptoms or from whenever their testing date was if they're asymptomatic. Symptoms would need to be improved and fever-free for at least 24 hours before a student would be able to return back to school. Household contacts of those students who are positive would also need to stay home and watch for symptoms for 14 days after their last contact. Any quarantine or isolation of students, of classrooms, whole schools, or the district as an entirety would be determined in collaboration with local public health and the Minnesota Department of Health. Anyone who has symptoms of illness should stay home, or if they're at school, be evaluated by the building nurse. The student would be isolated away from other well students, and we recommend following up with their healthcare provider. Again, a case investigation will occur, and then notifications would be determined in collaboration with public health. Anyone with symptoms should stay home and isolate for 10 days, and they can return after that 10 days as long as their symptoms have improved and they've been fever-free for at least 24 hours. So if they're determined that they're a contact of somebody who has a positive case or they're symptomatic, that would be evaluated by the building nurse. Anybody who is deemed a contact should be staying home for 14 days from the last contact to watch for symptoms. So if somebody has symptoms or they're positive, it's a 10-day course to, the illness will run its course in 10 days. For the most part, there are some exceptions to that, but if you're asymptomatic and you're just exposed to somebody, then you have to watch for symptoms for 14 days from that last date of contact. But then if symptoms in your child then develop, we would then use the flow chart for the positive cases. Thank you.
We just want to let everybody know that we do have the potential of transitioning in between these models throughout the entire school year based on the guidance and the expectation that the Minnesota Department of Education and the Minnesota Department of Health have put in front of us. So again, we want to also allow families, we want to ensure families to know that we're going to communicate with them as soon as we possibly know. We know there could be a quarantine at a class level, a grade level, a school level, and a district level. We know that our numbers will be changing, and the balancing stability and health and safety are critically important. We will monitor our health data and other concerns and reevaluate our models on a monthly basis. With the exception of quarantines, it might be necessary in the event of a positive case that staff and we will let staff and parents know as soon as we possibly can. We do know that in a quarantine situation, it could be overnight, can't come tomorrow. For the whole district to shift models, we are really committed to sharing with families as soon as we possibly can and giving them as much opportunity to plan and prepare for any kind of major shifts. It's really important that we are in this together. We do know that moving the dial towards full in-person learning will require a community effort. Public health data needs to continue to move in the right direction. We need to follow the Minnesota Department of Health and CDC guidelines in wearing masks, practicing social distancing, practicing good hand washing to reduce the risks of exposure. We want our parents to support us in helping us tell our students and encourage our students that it will be required for them to wear masks. The governor's executive order does state that students K-12 will be required to wear masks. And so we want our families to support us in ensuring that that can happen to keep not only our students safe, but our teachers and our community. So whether you live in Carver, Chanhassen, Chaska, Victoria, we do know that we are stronger together and we're in this together. Thank you.
All right, thanks everybody. And Erin, you turned off your video camera too quickly. You've been in pretty much every one of these. You know that you're usually the one that's on the hot seat. So we're going to start out with, this is a good question. And I'm going to start with you. We may need some input from the principals, but I thought this was a good question. So this parent asks, I understand the why of Wednesdays, but I'm still fuzzy on what exactly my kids will be doing. How is the day structured? Will they be working independently? Will they be required to register for win time sessions? Will there be synchronous teaching? What is Wednesday really going to look like at the high school level?
Trying to unmute here. So that's a great question. And there will be some synchronous learning. It will not be all day synchronous learning. It will be getting students up, getting them started. There will be an opportunity for win time at the high school level, and then there will be some independent learning. It will be a full day of distance learning where students will not be coming into the buildings. I didn't say this in the presentation because of course I messed up on that slide, but one of the reasons Wednesday is really important is it is time for planning and collaboration for our teachers. Being in a hybrid model is a really significant lift for our high school teachers in particular because the classes are just so critical. So there will be planning time for teachers, but they will be available. The other part is that we'll have some opportunity for some deep cleaning with less people in the buildings. And that is really important. And I say that so carefully because it doesn't mean cleaning isn't going to be happening the whole time, because our operations director has done an amazing job with her team to ensure that our kids are going to be safe and following MDH guidelines to ensure that there's great cleaning during the day, at the end of the day, but Wednesday will be certainly simpler with less people in the buildings. So it will be learning time for our students. It will not be synchronous the whole day, but I certainly know that it will be synchronous to get kids up and going. So just like you as a mom or a parent or an aunt or an uncle out there, we want our kids to get back on schedule. And so we want to ensure that we're able to provide a much more scheduled response, even at the high school level. Starting out in distance learning, moving to hybrid, there is going to be a schedule. It is not going to be passive attendance like it was in the spring. It's not going to be like, oh, get on whenever you want. There's going to be times kids are going to be required to be on to ensure that they are getting the support and help that they need. So it's back to learning, just like we're calling it return to learn. Whether you're starting in distance learning or not, there will be a schedule and there will be a requirement to get on, get in attendance, and get moving with a teacher.
And speaking of attendance, Erin, and this may be, and one of the things that I think it's hard for folks to understand is some of this is still moving, right? Like we're still tweaking and making changes and identifying areas that we need to do a little bit more work on. But what will attendance look like? Last year we just logged in and checked a box once a day. We'll be doing attendance by class. Do we know yet?
It will be attendance as usual, like in regular school. So it will be get in, get up, get in the class so that you can have attendance. It's the Minnesota Department of Education called it active attendance. So it's not just checking a box, it is the full participation. And of course, I also want to say that the teachers will provide opportunities. Sometimes we just got some family things going on. A lot of our older students are supporting our younger siblings at home. And so we want to be thoughtful about that. So there will be recorded videos. There will be an opportunity for kids to do the things they need to do in their home, because we know that that's happening too. And I really want to honor that that is what some of us are having our older siblings do in our homes. I know that's happening in my home sometimes also. And so we want to ensure that there's an equitable access to the education, but it is a much more active attendance and schedule that we need students to follow.
Great. And then one last question before I call the principals up and give them a little bit of time in the hot seat. If high school opens in person or hybrid and we choose to send our kids to school, then change our mind, possibly due to COVID cases, can we continue distance learning without joining the online academy?
No, that is why the online academy is an option, is because if you don't want to pivot in and out of the models, then you should just enroll there. If you're willing to move along the data with us and pivot in and out of the models, then you should stay at the high school that you are enrolled in. If we do though go to in-person or hybrid and you just think, oh, I just can't do this. I'm too nervous. My kid doesn't like it. Maybe my student's doing a lot better in distance learning. I know that was some of our kids' experiences also. They should enroll in the online academy, but then you cannot unenroll. You have to stay till January 22nd. It is a semester commitment, and then we'll redo it in the second semester. We'll see where things are at and decide what we need to do. And again, follow MDE's requirement. We'll do a re-enrollment, so you'll have an opportunity. We felt like a year commitment was a lot for our families and feels like a really big commitment when we just feel like everything's really unpredictable. So we're trying to honor our families and knowing that each of us are on a continuum about how we feel, the level of anxiety we have, the circumstances we have at home, and give people as many options as we can within parameters in which we can service those choices. And just really want to honor things change for people also. And so we want to just make sure people have options.
Thanks, Erin. And I'm just going to throw this out to our either any of our high school principals to answer, but question about how are classes that have students from both high schools going to be handled?
Well, I can jump in. Can I just ask a clarification question though? When you say both high schools, you're talking about the online academy classes, or are you talking about?
I think they're talking about there may be classes that we have Chan kids and Chaska high school kids enrolled in at the same time. That's my guess.
Right. Okay. So specifically, and Jim, you're free to jump in as well. By the way, I'm Doug Bulling. I'm the principal at Chanhassen High School. Learning this along the way as well here. For students who are enrolled in both, it's going to kind of depend on if they're in hybrid mode or in the distance learning or the online academy mode. If it's online academy, it's a little bit easier. Obviously, they're going to have to worry about the location that they're at, but they will still be meeting at those same times through Google Meets or what have you during the pre-designated times for first block, third block, fifth block, etc. With if they're in hybrid mode, but they're shared between the two schools, it's going to depend on where that class is being offered. So if they're in face-to-face, if it's a face-to-face day, and they're, for example, an A day, then on those days, they're an A student and they have face-to-face that day, they would go to that school for that class. Again, it's different if you're in hybrid mode versus distance learning mode or online academy. But if it's our own kind of distance learning model or this the online academy, then it kind of doesn't depend what school they're at. They're still accessing the content online. If it's in hybrid, then it's a matter of where the course is being offered. I don't know, Jim, if you would add anything to
Yeah, I would just say that the students are assigned to a teacher. So, in a traditional model, we've had kids travel back and forth to a teacher depending on, because we share staff and we share kids. So the teacher will stay the same. The model will just differ.
Jim, I'm going to keep you there. I've had a request to go back, and since we've got we put the Chaska High School schedule up, I'm going to ask you. So I have somebody asked, can you talk in detail through what the high school students' day will look like in distance learning? And since we have the schedule nicely laid out and it talks about both distance and hybrid, I'm wondering if you can talk about what a student day will look like.
Sure. This is designed based on feedback from parents, students, and staff that we felt like kids needed a structure. So what we decided to go to is have a actual schedule. We also heard that 6 or 7 classes in a day was also a challenge. So that's why we went to the 3 blocks. So if you look on the schedule, first hour, 7:45, September 8th, all the kids will log in either from home. Well, and distance learning plan, they'll all be from home. They will be logging into their first hour class with their teacher. Teachers will take attendance, they'll continue on. So that will stay the same. From third hour, they'll log into their third hour class, fifth hour, they'll log into their fifth hour class, and same on Tuesdays and Fridays. The nice thing about this model, it allows us to then transition into the hybrid, which would stay everything the same. The difference would be we would have A kids on a Monday in class, in school, and the B kids would be at home, but they would all log in at 7:45 for attendance to be taken, and then the teacher will then kind of direct whether it's synchronous learning, direct teaching, or if they do asynchronous with the in-person and at home they have options on how they structure it based on the activities that are being taught.
Anything to add, Doug? Sorry, I don't have the Chan slide to pull up.
That's fine. The only thing that I would say is maybe a little bit different than just as you look at if anybody who's on the Zoom call here is looking at what's on the screen, probably going to have teacher PLC time in the morning actually, and then WIN time would be in the afternoon. Also based on feedback and what our experience was in the spring, it's a little easier to get students up and running in the afternoon for those WIN sessions, and the PLC time would probably be in the morning. But we will have synchronous, asynchronous learning for students on Wednesdays, so it's not an off day by any means, whether you're in a WIN session or not.
Tara, do you want to talk about the IA experience?
Hey, yeah, Tara Kaltis, principal at IA. We are keeping our 6 period day. We are not going to blocks because when we go to hybrid, we want to make sure that we see our kids 2 days in a row. So they'll have first hour both Monday and Tuesday if they're A, and Thursday, Friday they'll have the B group will see their teachers twice. They have first hour. They won't be in a block. And then we have the same on Wednesdays. They'll have WIN time and then they'll have PLC time. So that's the difference for IA. Just to address, in case there are any IA parents on here or students, we do share our students with Chan and Chaska High School, and they will be able to access those classes. If we're in the hybrid and they're an A student and they go to first hour at Chaska High School, then they'll be bused to Chaska High School and then bused back to IAA. So they still will access and follow the Chaska or Chan schedule for that class period.
Perfect, thank you. Jim, I have a parent that was a little confused by communication today that came out that talked about red days on the modified calendar, and wondered if we were going to have some more communication about how 6 period days on a red day are going to be divided out.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yes, we will look at, as we get closer to the start, we'll kind of come out and explain it. The red day on like September 8th, in order to balance the time, the classes, we had to have like 6 period days so that the time was kind of equal. Otherwise, classes can get imbalanced. And when you're trying to balance 5 classes, that gets really hard. So those classes will be in a 6 period day. But, the times will be obviously altered, and we'll come out with more information on how to do that.
Great, thanks, Jim. Doug, will there be, if we're in a distance learning format, and again, the difference between a mandatory distance learning is in the state has ordered us into distance learning and our district pivoting into distance learning for some reason, will there be in-school lab days for kids who have sort of hands-on components to their classes?
Yeah, we know the value of having students in the classes, and some things are just really, having been a former science teacher, for example, just really hard to replicate. It's hard to learn some of the scientific concepts, and not just science, but other. I'm speaking obviously with a little bit of science bias here, but other topics as well, other content areas. The nice thing about being in kind of a voluntary, if you will, distance learning is that we can still bring students in. We can still pull together small groups, have students come in to do, a certain lab or an activity or what have you. Still, obviously, trying to mitigate as much as we possibly can any chance of virus spread, but we will have those opportunities, and it's really kind of dependent on the course and dependent on the teacher teams as what they determine it to be like the essential activities, the essential learning activities that can happen in the school.
When we get into a hybrid model, will exams and tests be in the classroom, or is that for instructional time and quizzes and tests will be online?
I would say yes. I don't think it's an either or. I think it's a yes situation. I think it depends on what the assessment is, what it's trying to get at. One thing that's being forced into the crisis learning that we did in the spring, I think one of the benefits of that is it really forced everybody across the school, across the entire United States, to think about like what is an effective assessment? How do we truly know what students, what are some better ways maybe for students to demonstrate what they know, and how do we really ask better questions, better assessments? Point being, I think we've gotten better as a district across all districts, really. I think we've all gotten better at really zeroing in on what are our learning intentions and how are we going to ask those questions. So I think we've gotten better at doing that from a distance. I think we're better at kind of safeguarding, if you will, academic dishonesty and things like that, to make it more of an authentic assessment. But I don't think it's it's either going to be in it could be either. I think it entirely depends on the content area.
I've got an incoming freshman, Chaska High School class of 2024. What are we doing for our freshmen? They didn't get a chance to tour their high schools in the spring. Are we going to have an orientation? What are we going to do to make sure that those kids aren't terrified on the first day that they're actually back in school when we get into that hybrid model?
I can let you know what we're doing on September 2nd. We will have our link orientation. And usually that's where we bring all ninth graders into the building. We hook them up with upperclassmen and they take them through some, team building activities. They teach them about the schools. We give tours. This year, we're going to do that a little bit differently. So on September 2nd, our link crew leaders will invite groups of 10 to 12 kids to join them on a Google Meets. They'll go through some questions. They'll do some activities. And then that night on September 2nd, we've got the ninth graders and all students new to the district broken up into 4 groups where they'll be able to come into the building. Teachers will be here. They'll be able to walk their schedule. They'll get to see who their teachers are. So when they do come into the building for the first time, they kind of have a good lay of the land.
It's the same at the other school, Chanhassen as well. So we're actually working on communication right now, anticipated going out tomorrow to families. So we sent a communication yesterday, just nitty gritty calendar, schedule, daily schedule, that kind of thing. Tomorrow's more of the kind of into the weeds as far as like picture day and Chromebooks and that, back new to Chanhassen night, as we're calling it. So those details will be in that, but it's the same thing that Jim's talking about. We'll have 4 30-minute segments. Students will be assigned per alpha, probably per their counselor. And then we're stripping away a fair amount of what we've done in the past for that back to school night, just to make it, again, a little more streamlined and putting more things on the web over the next week or so. I'm actually meeting with some students tomorrow to put together some videos, which will be fun to show freshmen how do we do things at our school. But that we do care greatly more. I mean, specifically for that ninth grade class, any transition year is a big year, and we want to give extra attention, extra energy to that group. So they don't have that freak out moment the first time they actually step foot in the school when we do pivot into hybrid.
Tara, anything from you? There you go.
Yeah, sorry. At IAA, that workshop week, students advisors, all students, but specifically our new students, ninth graders and any new transfer students to IAA, the advisors will call and talk to them. And then the first week of school, we partner any new students, ninth grade or transfer, with a student ambassador that will take them through their schedule, whether it's virtually or in person, but we hook them up with a student ambassador to help them through the process of transitioning into our school because of the art focus and project-based learning nature of our school, that they need to learn that sort of system and process, and it's done best with a student ambassador. So that's our plan for getting those new students acclimated to our school.
Awesome. Will ACT and SAT tests still be offered at the school?
Yes, we're working with those 2 organizations on how to do it. I'm not sure. I guess I'm not positive about the SAT, what the current status is, but we do have. We are working with ACT to make that happen. Not just ACT like on Saturdays and on weekends, but we obviously could not do our ACT in the spring, and we have rescheduled that for our to-be seniors, what they would have taken as a junior, to take that this fall. And more information on that will be coming soon.
I think it's October 6th is the date.
Sounds right. Yeah.
During win time, will students be required to be on a live class?
On a live class, I think what and Jim Tara jump in if you're thinking differently, but I'm seeing it as those are kind of different things as win time versus class time. So we have class time, we have 90 minutes outlined for class time. By no means are students going to be looking at a screen for 90 minutes. We're expecting, a check-in with every class period, 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, depending on the content, but of some synchronous learning for students, whether it's distance learning or hybrid. And then like help time after that. And then after each class period, we've got win time built in. So that win time would be not specific. I mean, it's specific to content area, but it's not class time. It's not new learning. It's more like extra support, extra help, answer the questions. You know, I still don't really get this. Teacher, can you help me out? That kind of thing. So teachers can be working in small groups through Google Meet. Or if we're in hybrid mode at that point, they can work with the teacher in face-to-face mode.
Awesome. All right, I'm gonna get Aaron back in the hot seat. You guys can get a water break.
Great.
I just love our principals taking the load for me.
So here's a question. I'm assuming, again, I don't have, when we pivoted to distance in the spring, we were able to pick up materials that we needed to support our learning that weren't available through a Chromebook. I'm assuming the question is, will teachers get students materials during online learning this first month? So whether it's distance learning for the high school as we're in distance learning, or if people choose online learning, they will have access to pick up materials for their learning, correct?
Yes, we're working on that and trying to organize that right now. We certainly are we have to work on enrollment. So we have families that are enrolling right now in the Online Learning Academy. And then our principals and our building leaders and our teachers will work on providing the materials that are needed for students. And so for some of the classes, they won't need any materials for the first week or two. And for some of our classes, we're going to need to get them things. So there will be opportunities for pick up materials as needed.
And then any changes to opportunities for the co-op or PSEO? Not sure.
I think I need Jim and Doug to.
Yeah, that might be a Jim. Sorry, I never know which questions are Jim and Doug and which questions are Aaron. So
Jim and Doug might be good for that.
There you go. I was having trouble getting back in.
Just to wrap up, yeah, can you say the question again about the co-op piece?
Yep. Any changes to opportunities for co-op and post-secondary education?
No.
Nope.
Well, that was easy.
We're trying to offer every service we possibly can as we did before as well. Obviously, it's going to look, the how is going to be different, but we're still planning on offering as many of the services we had pre-COVID as is possible.
All right. Fantastic. Now Aaron gets to come back. Thanks, guys.
I just gave them one that they had to jump on and say no.
Keep sending those.
If a student starts in distance learning and the school starts doing hybrid, so we start in distance learning and the school pivots to hybrid, and then the student decides to go online into the online academy, would their teachers change?
It's possible. Not for sure, but it's possible. And I would plan on it.
Okay.
Jim, are you going to say no? It would be the same. It's like
we did create a system where we believe that depending on if we get more and more numbers in, but right now we've created a system where we hope that doesn't happen, because the teachers, we've put all of our distance learning into our actual classrooms with teachers, and we do have separate sections if we have enough kids. Like if we have 32 in Algebra 2 and we needed a teacher, we'll be teaching that. So the only way that it will is if our numbers become so big in that point that they may have to change. But our hope is no, but it is a possibility.
And also, just if we can, just to jump in for the community to understand the tricky piece of it too is the licensure aspect of it. Having a certain number of students opt for the online academy versus a number of teachers who are doing accommodations and doing the online academy and or doing distance learning and hybrid learning for our other students. Sometimes that's just not a match there, and that's been the toughest thing I think over the last week to piece together is how do we make sure that we've got the right licensed teachers teaching the right content, obviously, to the students who are opting for online academy.
Since you teed that up so nicely, Doug, do you want to talk about when folks might expect to see schedules?
Yes, we have two amazing schedule folks and our assistant principals at both high schools. Honestly, they are workhorses, and they have put in, Aaron Swoboda and Kathy Fontes are working really hard on this and have put in a lot of hours and will continue to do so between now and the 25th. So the goal is the 25th next week.
And that is the same time that they find out whether they're an A or B, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right, thanks. Michelle.
Yes.
For kids with an IEP, how will the teachers stay involved with work students need to turn in? It's hard to, for some parents to navigate campus to keep up with their students' progress.
Yeah. I think some of that will help because of the Google Classroom platform for all of the classes, whether it's general education or special education. So, you know, if your students in a special education class for maybe organization, they receive the support in there to make a plan to complete their work often. It's also the general education teacher can certainly help keep parents and even special education informed when a student is falling behind. So none of that would change in any model that we're in. The same services and supports that are available in person will be available in hybrid and in distance learning as well.
Thanks. All right, Erin.
Oh, I don't know, these high school principals are out talking to me tonight.
They are.
I know, I like it.
So we know band is really important to a lot of families, and I know that we're still working through some things, but will people still have access to music education at high school?
That is certainly the goal. And we do know that all of the activities that our students are excited about is something we want to work really hard to provide the best that we can in a pandemic and in a virtual and hybrid world. So let me just tell you a little bit about the challenges at the band and music level. So there is MDH and MDE requirements and guidelines around that. So one is students wearing if you're in band, masks with slits in them. They're $30 a piece. And so we're working really hard to figure out how do we get those? How do we get them made? How do we ensure students have those? And do they need more than one of those so that they lose them, forget them? But we know that will help keep students safe. 6 feet of social distancing, bell covers, again, really expensive, ensuring that we have those for each of our students' instruments. If they cannot have those, then the guidance is 12 feet of social distancing, which basically puts like 4 trumpeters in the space with us, right? Like that's like an impossible amount of social distancing for a classroom. Same thing with choir. We're gonna have to have people singing with masks on. Anytime you're projecting your voice, there has to be a significant amount of social distancing. And so we're working alongside our music. I just wanna say our music, band, orchestra, instrument, vocal, teachers, I wanna say them all because I feel really, I'm excluding if I don't say them all. And I don't even know if I got them all that time. They have been so supportive. They have done so much learning over the summer. I had a meeting with them a couple weeks ago, and then our teaching and learning team met with them on Wednesday, and all they can think about is like how to get kids back singing, back playing, back doing these things that they really love and that they love to do with kids. And so they're really educating us from their expertise perspective to ensure that we can keep them safe and students safe. And that our kids can still be performing. As you can imagine though, we have some of these challenges in all of our specialty places. Physical education, ensuring that the weight room is clean and can we social distance in there, ensuring that students are safe during physical education class, art class. I mean, students are doing ceramics and they're at the wheel and teachers usually support their hands to teach them how to use the clay or jewelry making or soldering metal. And so each of our specialty groups is really, each of those is a challenge. It's not just as simple as bring everybody back and we'll figure it out. Each of these things are health concerns. They require equipment, maybe additional supplies. And so we just want to ensure that we do that really well and that we know that these are places that students really excel. It creates a holistic learning environment for our kiddos. And that these are the things that feel really special to them. And we want to make sure that we can do it well, safe, health, education with those values in mind.
Awesome, thanks. All right, principals. Will AP classes still be offered? We've heard there'll be cuts in AP class offerings.
No, we have the same classes that were being offered. I don't know, Ralph, sometimes we don't get enough kids to run all 28 of them. And that may be the case, but any class that we had enough students to take them and run them, they are being run.
There's not a difference in decision points on that. Distance learning versus online academy versus hybrid. We're still staffing it the way we would have in the good old days of pre-COVID. So we are trying to create again the same offerings as we had prior to COVID. Might look a little bit different in the how, but as much as we possibly can, the same as we did before.
Awesome. So we got about 5 minutes left. I guess I just want to ask Jim and Doug and Tara and Michelle, I think you've got a perspective too. What one or two pieces of advice would you give parents and students to get ready for the year? What can they do to support you? What can they do to support themselves and their student success? What do they need to know about coming back September 8th, no matter what that looks like?
I think first getting them used to getting up and being in a classroom at 7:45. This is obviously a change from what we did last year, but I tell the parents the same thing every year. Start getting them up and getting them in that routine, because if we just wait until September 8th, that's a big challenge. And we want to make sure they start off on the right foot. So that's probably the big thing, just getting them up, getting them ready to a routine, and have the expectations that it's going to look different. There's going to be more structures, and just get ready for it on that, and get into the Google Classrooms. I don't know, Doug and Tara.
Yeah, I guess I would say the same. Find that spot in the house. Do what you can to support the kiddo in having a location. Good access, good online access. Let us know if you're having connectivity issues, things like that. Again, get into the groove of things, and part of that groove, I think, is the face mask piece. So where's your face mask? Make sure you're bringing your face mask, at least one, to school every day in case you lose one. Make sure you have that on. We don't want to. It's not going to be like this policing thing. We don't want to catch kids not wearing their face masks. We just need and ask that that you would partner with us, families, to get students used to wearing those face masks. And it's tough on all of us, to varying levels, to kind of get used to that. But the more we can just get that to be a part of the routine and convince people that, this is, for the safety of others and for the respect of others, make sure you're wearing your face mask. And we'll continue to nudge, if we see students not wearing, but we'll remind them. But it's not going to be like this thing where we're looking for, looking to catch kids and dole out consequences or anything like that. We're just, but that would be something that I anticipate being a bit of a struggle those first few weeks when we do come back. Tara, do you have anything?
Yeah, I would say make sure to really partner with us and reach out. If you have any questions, or if your student's struggling, whether they're on online academy or whether in distance learning or hybrid, as we switch back and forth, if they're struggling in any way, or they need help or not, or you just have questions, just make sure to reach out to someone and get those questions answered so we can help you. We're here to help.
And
I could also just go ahead.
Oh.
Sorry, go ahead.
I would echo all of that. The one thing I would add for special education, though it's probably a good idea for any student, but talk to your student about what worked and didn't work in distance learning, what their fears are. We're going to have in special education that contingency learning plan meeting, and the student perspective is going to be really important in that. So any prep work you can do to help them be able to share what they think they might really need would be really helpful, so they don't feel put on the spot.
Doug, did you have something else you wanted to add?
Oh, I was just going to put out there to the families that it is a partnership, and know that we being new to the district, I can assure that we've got a lot of hardworking people, a lot of very innovative people who've been putting in hours and hours and hours every day. And we do want, trust us, we want to be back to the good old days as well. We want to be face to face. And we also have, the charge to make sure we're doing it safely. So just your continued grace and patience, knowing that we are doing everything we possibly can to keep things as safe as possible, so that we can get to that place of being face to face.
Awesome. Thank you. Erin, any parting words before we go?
I sure do. I just want to, first of all, Kaylee and your engagement team, thank you so much for all of the work that you've done over the last handful of weeks to ensure that our families have everything they need, and to get as many questions answered as they need to and want to. Our high school principals, Doug, James, and Tara, have been working extremely hard and want to be open and want to support teachers. So I certainly want to echo, just thank you for the grace and patience for my high school students and their families. I certainly want to acknowledge that there was some disappointment, and we know that, and that people are really excited. And high school is such an amazing time, and there's so many memories to be made here, and that a lot of our students have had to have a lot of disappointments over the last handful of months, and has been very challenging for us and for them and for their families. And people want things to go back to normal, but we certainly want to ensure that we're providing a quality product and ensuring that we are leading around safety, health, and education, and that we are keeping the highest standard in all of those areas. So thank you so much for your time tonight. And then just on behalf of Superintendent Sales Adams and I, we're extremely excited about being in Eastern Carver County and meeting all of you someday in person. And we are happy to be here to serve this community, our students and our teachers and our building leaders. So have a good night.
Thanks, Erin. And thank you to everybody who joined us. I think we got to almost all the questions. If we didn't, please, again, feel free to reach out to your building principal. The staff at the high schools are working hard to be ready for your students, and would be more than happy to walk you through any questions or anxiety that you have to help you be prepared for just a few short weeks from now when we are back together in some way, shape, or form. And we continue to work hard as a community to get to the point where we can all be back in person together full time. Thank you all for your time tonight. I wish you only the best. Take care and have a good evening.